a global call to student action on Friday the 15th, a global call to take a stand. The language is like this. The language is that there is a global crisis of climate change, but the adults of the world are not treating it as a crisis. And so students globally are mobilizing to make it a crisis. And I believe that, or to create a crisis. And what the action is to not attend school on Friday. I mean, that's the piece we're working with. I've been working with student leaders for probably the past 2 weeks or so on what are some ways that they can be part of this movement, express their political speech, express their views, to be connected with this. These students felt that to really be within the parameters of this movement, that they wanted to leave campus.
Climate change has got to go! Climate change has got to go! You're doing so good! You're doing great! You're doing great for you! What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Hello, is this channel?
Okay, exactly. Okay, everyone, circle up!
Okay. For Channel 8 News, they want us to wear this when we're speaking.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's pretty awesome to have this much support. Underneath the tarp, we're going to take a 10-minute break. There are bathrooms in the bottom of the UU Church or the library you can use. Please be responsible. You're with us. You don't want to make us look bad as a group. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everybody. So at this time, we're going to start with some speakers. And so first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for being here and participating in the global climate strike. It's so inspiring to see so many people advocating for change. And so first, we're going to start this off with climate activist and student Noah Anderson to say a few words.
So I can switch
In a few seconds. If people could kind of come over this way behind the cameras a little bit, just so everybody can see and hear Noah speak a little clearer, that'd be great. Okay, now please welcome Noah.
Woo! Can everyone hear me okay?
I think you should step back. Because they're trying to catch
Louder, Noah.
Okay, I'll be louder. How's it going, everyone? Good. Woo! Okay. Oop. Whoa, that's loud. I want you to imagine yourself in 11 years. Where you'll be living, what you hope to have accomplished, how the world might change. It might sound like a lot of time, but what if I told you that in 11 years, the effects of climate change will be irreversible? If that's bleak, it's because it is. By 2030, the world will reach 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit of warming since the onset of the Industrial Revolution. This seemingly small temperature change comes with a myriad of effects ranging from economic to ecological to the safety and well-being of our communities. Global warming increases the frequency and severity of hurricanes, floods, wildfires, heat waves, which from 2007 to 2016 cost the U.S. $240 billion annually, and by 2030, these costs will increase by 50% to $360 billion if no action is taken. Infectious diseases such as malaria will spread farther due to the increased living range for their host species. Continued burning of fossil fuels will lead to a larger number of people living with chronic respiratory illnesses. Droughts in the Middle East will increase, causing more sporadic rainfall and exacerbate world hunger. Sea level rise due to ice melt in the Arctic will cause the displacement of the hundreds of millions living along the coasts. Human life will change permanently, and not for the better. The exploitations of the Earth's resources is nothing new. Mankind has always believed that they are entitled to use of the Earth's resources. There's a concept in Judaism, it's called Bal Tashchit. It teaches that mankind's right to the land doesn't include a license to abuse it. It's based on the idea that during wartime, the invading army must not destroy fruit-bearing trees and other plants. I'm not overly pious, nor do I use my faith to form or justify my opinions. However, I believe in the continuation of tradition, especially when that tradition aligns with the betterment and continuation of humanity. This idea tasks me with the conservation and the idea that natural resources are to be used, but in a responsible manner. We're hovering at a tipping point, one from which we may never return. I've laid out a dark image of the future, but it doesn't have to be this way. If we begin efforts to transition to renewable energy sources right now, we can mitigate the effects of global warming and save millions of lives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Noah. And so if anybody forgot food or needs some food for lunch, please find Sophie some point today. And now, please welcome Erica to share a few words. Are we good? Can everyone hear me? I feel like this is awkward. All right. Climate change, global warming, rising sea levels, melting ice caps, severe weather patterns, greenhouse gases. These are words we hear day in and day out, and yet it seems they've had little to no value in our ever-evolving world. Until today. Today is the day to make change, to apply pressure and demand commitment from ourselves and government officials. Thank you so much for being here with the people standing right next to you and those protesting across the globe. The power we have together must put more fear in politicians' minds than the fear we live with every day. The fear that keeps you up at night, distracts you from your homework, and influences your day-to-day decisions. Now, why doesn't the same fear reside in the minds of all other people? In short, humans fear change of all types, both good and bad. Historically, climate change has had a neutral connotation, but that is no longer true.
We have known that the Earth's average temperature has been increasing for some time now, but many people are afraid to admit they are part of the increase, afraid to take ownership of the detrimental effects of climate change that are powered by global warming. Fear is within us all, myself included. I often question myself, is it okay to demand change from other people when I, myself, need constant reminders to bring my own coffee cup and reusable bag? Does that make me a hypocrite? Well, yes, but it is far better than turning a blind eye to the issue. Although my contributions are small, they are beginning of something larger. Much like Greta's Fridays for Future movement, starting small and ultimately growing to over 100,000 people today. When 100,000 people gather together and cut their plastic consumption in half, compost, and hang their laundry to dry, the environmental impact is considerable. These seemingly insignificant actions add up, so don't give up on them. Greta says refer to science. I say refer to the basics. We can make solving the climate crisis as complicated or as simple as we want, but simplicity seems to be where it's at. I'm not here to remind you of the storms and the fires that have devastated communities around the world. Our media has got that covered for us. I, like Greta, am here to remind you and encourage you to do your part while demanding change from others. It takes a team to make a dream work. We are all in this together, requiring the friendly reminders and support to keep us motivated, to push ourselves to new heights in the world of sustainability and be better leaders in the future. With just a short amount of time to make enormous changes in our lives, it is extremely important that we be supportive and proactive. Understand that drastic changes like eliminating plastic from our daily lives takes time that we can't waste. I urge you to make a conscious effort to eliminate plastic by politely saying no to straws, plastic bags, and to-go containers, one step at a time. Each step we make towards solving the climate crisis is an explanation dodged. When younger generations ask, what were we doing to face this crisis? The last thing I want to admit is nothing. This brings me back to fear, the fear that keeps you up at night. We have a choice to make. Either we attack our fears while they are manageable, or we don't. Either we stop the irreversible effects of global warming, or we don't. Just know your decisions today create your fears for tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Go, Sophie.
Okay, now please welcome Sophie Leggett.
Yes, Sophie!
Hello. It's fine. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for having me. I'm going to go a little bit off topic. Bear with me. I'm going to talk for a little bit about chocolate chip cookies. You thought I was joking. So I really love chocolate chip cookies. Most cookies, actually. And in the short term, they do a lot of good for me. They release all those like happy chemicals in my brain. They're sweet and chewy and crunchy, and I like them warm out of the oven. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So I've been eating them my whole life. It's kind of a ritual. Let's say, hypothetically, my mom bakes chocolate chip cookies all the time because she knows I love them. And I keep eating them. I keep consuming them without even thinking about it because they're so delicious. But eventually I realized through school or the internet or whatever that eating cookies every day for my meal is not sustainable. It maybe isn't the best decision for me. It's way too much sugar, it's not healthy for my body, we're wasting money on ingredients and electricity, etc. So what is next when I make this choice? There are two paths I could take economically, and that's supply or demand. And they're both often effective. So I stop eating cookies, or at least so many cookies, because I have to sometimes. And I talk to my brothers and get them to do the same thing. For the same reason, and eventually my mom realizes this and stops making them or makes them less often. because at the end of the day, she just wants to make her kids happy. Alternatively, or in addition, I could have a conversation with her about how these cookies are really affecting us, and though we love them, we just can't go on like this. Because I care about our future, I'm making this choice, this sacrifice. She could switch to an alternative good that makes us just as happy. Maybe we only have them once a week or once a month, or maybe I start buying locally made cookies in bulk and she has to compete. I hope you were able to decipher my attempt at an analogy, but if not, I'm not really talking about cookies. I'm talking about the products we use every day, the plastics we eat from, and the fossil fuels we burn. I'm talking about the massive effects we could see in our economy if everyone just made little sacrifices. Too often we perceive our own actions as insignificant or futile. Too often we feel so bogged down by our own smallness that we forget we are part of something bigger, that we are small but crucial parts of a complex machine. Economically speaking, one of the largest impacts we as individuals can have from making choices in our daily lives. When we eat less meat or use less plastic or buy less factory-made products, thrifting and borrowing, and especially when we get large amounts of people to do the same, we are changing the nature of industry from the consumer side. We are forcing suppliers to rethink how to make money and satisfy their customers. We are essentially demanding large-scale change, altering the nature of our economy. It is absolutely necessary to make our individual sacrifices in order to secure a sustainable future that works for us and our planet. To revisit the metaphor, we are the ones eating the cookies. In more real terms, we are the ones causing a large portion of greenhouse gas emissions by continuing the financial support for industries that pollute the earth, and by burning fossil fuels of our own every day. Yes, we demand national and global action. We demand legislation and policy and the effective execution of such. Yes, we must push the people in power, the people with responsibility, but we must also demand something of ourselves. We must hold ourselves accountable for our own behavior, for the ways in which we conduct our lives. We must recognize our own responsibility as consumers and citizens. I implore my fellow consumers, my fellow citizens, to be critical of your behavior in a way you never have before. We have the ability to make change that begins in our kitchens, and in our cars, and on our roads, and in our lives. Act to sustain our future.
Maddie, can you hold the mic for me?
Now, please welcome Eric Dorfman, organizer and climate activist.
George Perkins Marsh was born in Woodstock, Vermont on March 15th, 1801. And he was the first person in history to introduce the issue of climate change. Exactly 220 years after his birth, I bet he is turning in his grave. Because he predicted this reality that we find ourselves in of human-induced climate crisis. We are all here today because of one girl from Sweden, Greta Thunberg. She describes if a few children all over the world can get headlines just by not going to school, then imagine what we could all do together if we really wanted to. As we come together as an eco-community here in Woodstock and all over the world for climate justice, we are making a statement. Change is coming, and our generation will revolutionize the social, economic, and environmental fabric of our current paradigm. The environmental solutions are clear. We have all the science. What we lack is the political initiative. We cannot depend on our political leaders to make the necessary transformation. See, our political leaders are confined to a limited mode of function that operates solely for the unlimited accumulation of capital for the 1%. In other words, money controls the state. This transition of power that began during the 1600s marks a turning point in history from kings controlling the state to merchant capitalists controlling the state. This is the case all over the globalized world. As this new power structure started to expand, a simultaneous horizontal force of Greco-Roman philosophies about democracy emerged during the Enlightenment era. The practice of democracy is relatively new in the history of human civilization. This being true, we must evolve our democracy to strive towards a real-world government by the people and for the people. To do so, we must realize who really has the power currently. We live in what Samir Amin would call, quote, low-intensity democracy, end quote, based on political speculation with an extremely limited two-party system, both enchained to neoliberal capitalism in a society which roughly 50% of those eligible to vote do so. We cannot depend on our political leaders. History depends on us, the people, the youth, the women of the world to rise up and say enough is enough. We need to radically change almost every aspect of our globalized lifestyle if we are to stop the sixth mass extinction. Our issues are inseparably interconnected, from environmental justice to social justice to economic justice, and the solutions to these are holistic. As a representative of the people of the world, I will proceed to list the countries that our government is currently bombing. Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Somalia, Niger, Libya, Syria, and Pakistan. This is not mentioning the over 800 military bases around the world and our imperialist operations in these various countries. We must ask ourselves, who's benefiting from these military operations across the globe? My friends, we die and pay for the wars. I will allow Eugene Debs to speak on this matter. Quote, "The master class has always declared wars. The subject class has always fought the battles. The master class had all to gain and nothing to lose, while the subject class has nothing to gain and all to lose, especially their life." End quote. This policing of the world by Washington serves to benefit the ultra-rich lobbying interests of the plutocratic oligarchy, not me and you. These are the people to blame for the climate crisis. Greta explains, quote, "Someone is to blame. Some people, some companies, and some decision makers in particular has known exactly what priceless values they are sacrificing to continue making unimaginable amounts of money." Because I am on the matter of Washington's imperialism, I think it is important to critique the Monroe Doctrine echo-like operations in Venezuela, to undermine the democratically elected President Maduro, and plunder the country of its oil markets. Where is the environmental consciousness in these efforts? John Bolton and the Washington thugs have clearly stated their intentions in Venezuela are centered around their oil reserves. This is no secret. Not once has the question of ecological sanity and safeguarding the future living conditions on the planet come into question in this coup d'etat effort. We need to stop emissions, not continue with the logic of capital. We must rebel against extinction and do whatever it takes to save Mother Earth. I plan on being on the right side of history. Do you? We must turn to the indigenous people of the world if we are to survive the climate crisis. They hold the key to a lifestyle that is in balance with nature and sustainable in accordance with the planetary boundaries. With the ecological crisis of today, we are forced to realize that there is something fundamentally wrong with our Indo-European way of life. To undo our ancestors' mistakes of oppression, assimilation, and genocide of indigenous people, we must ask the great-grandmothers of the land for guidance. Green capitalism is not the solution. As a final word, I'm going to quote Immortal Technique. Some of us won't survive the changes the earth makes, swallowed by tsunamis, hurricanes, and earthquakes, and that is just the first stage if we do not reverse ways and realize we are all one, regardless of our birthplace. Beware the Ides of March.
Now we're just, sorry. 49 people were killed in a mass shooting inside of a mosque, and we're going to have a moment of silence in respect for them. Thank you. One more reminder, if you were not able to bring food today for any reason, come see me. And here's Lily.
So I would like to give a big thank you to everybody who helped make this day possible. So first of all, thank you to Phil Swanson for helping us accomplish this with the permitting, and also to Zach Ralph, who was a big help with that as well. Also to Peter Bowen and Change the World Kids for supporting this action and making actions throughout the town on the plastic ban. The police and the highway department for their escort and support of youth activism. Woodstock Union High School for the supportive teachers who took their time and personal days to be here. Allison Taylor for providing tents, Mark for providing a sound system, and the UU Church for having an open space. So thank you very much for everybody. Okay, at this time we would like to have an open mic for anybody to talk about how climate change has maybe affected their life or add any words to the conversation today. So, is there anybody willing to say anything? Or
It doesn't have to be like eloquent or long or anything. Anything that you want to say.
any thoughts?
I didn't actually prepare anything, but I was so moved to stand up here and just express my pride and gratitude to these students and all of you for participating in this. As a community, we have agreed that all of the graduates of our school system exhibit certain characteristics once they graduate our district, and I think all of these students, you all, are exhibiting all of these things. You are exhibiting self-direction, critical problem solving, skillful communication, stewardship, and academic excellence. You're taking what you're learning in school and applying it to try to make the world a better place. So thank you. so sad that this is where we are right now. It actually makes me so emotional that this is what we have to deal with right now. I'm so proud of everyone that's here and everyone that's doing something to help us. It's really sad, and I'm really scared for what is to come for us. So thank you for everyone that's here and helping. I'm just really proud of you. And I'm not that proud of what's happening. But I just say thank you. Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you to all the young people here and the older people who support you. This is a huge fight. It's a fight of our lives, and your voices are the most important voices. And one of the least talked about things about making a difference in climate change is we need to talk about it. This is a conversation. We need to talk about it in our homes. We need to talk about it on social media. We need to call the mass news media and say, why are you not covering this? Why are you not having this conversation? I've been following the student climate strike all over the world for the last 24 hours, and I have listened to the news today and on the TV, and I'm not hearing the kind of coverage that this deserves. This is the most important topic of our time. You guys are right where you need to be. Never give up. When you think that there's nothing you can do and you're powerless and you lose heart, realize that just speaking up is huge. Do it every day. Do it when you recycle. Do it when you ban plastics. But you guys will change the world because you are the biggest voting bloc coming up, and use it and make the change. It's not too late. There certainly is huge damage. We can't deny it, but we can make a huge difference and turn the tides, and you are the guys who are brave enough at this age to do it, so thank you. We'll help.
Just want to say a word on behalf of village government. You guys are great. We support what you're doing. About your age, I remember walking about 200 miles to Washington to protest the Vietnam War, and thank God that war ended. But this war is not going to end. This is going to be the rest of your life, the rest of my life for sure, and beyond, in terms of creating a safe planet to live on for the future. So this is just the beginning. You guys are wonderful. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing.
Is there anyone else that would like to voice anything on the topic? I would love to hear what you have to say, buddy. That you're afraid of? Are you afraid of climate change?
Global warming's not close.
That's right. Let's hear it from the younger generation, guys. If they're afraid and they're scared, it means we all should be. and there's time to change, and today is that day. So anyone else? Brave souls, it's okay. We'd love to hear from you. Graham, you want to speak? I would love to hear you speak.
So I just feel like on the news there's not enough coverage about this in particular. There's too much about like people going to the jail, people getting out of jail. Like this needs to be covered more because like it's kind of our future. It is our future, not kind of. So
If I can do it, you can do it. Come on.
Go for it, Judson. We'd love to hear it.
Hi. So I feel like whenever like I turn CNN or Fox News or anything like that, I always see what people like to call the biggest, which is normally just war and fighting and terrorism and stuff like that. And I feel like that the government, other people like that, are trying to hide up the fact that through them gaining capital and money, they're able to take away what we love and our world and stuff like that. And I feel like at this point, there is still things we can do, and the government is just saying like, no, it's fine, either it's just fine or like nothing's happening. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for doing this. This is amazing.
So, I definitely would say that a lot of the time, I feel like a lot of us do, I think, like Maddie was saying, that some days you just think that it's so overwhelming and so scary, you feel as though you're kind of frozen and, you know, it's overwhelming. But I think that seeing today, you know, it's not just us, it's people all over the world doing this. It gives me more than anything just hope that, you know, the conversation's happening, that we care about it. Like raise your hand if you care about climate change and you're gonna fix it personally. That's freaking amazing, you guys. I think that's just like, that's, for me on those tough days, you just have to remember that people care about it. If you care about it, like one person can make so much change, and if we're starting this conversation, all of you talk to someone today. Tell them you were here, and then that person talks to someone, and then it spreads. So I think the fact that we're having these conversations, we're talking about it, we care about it, I believe so much in our generation, and I think we can really fix this.
Thank you to everyone who spoke. Pretty awesome. So right now, we're gonna break up into, so you can either head to the basement of the UU Church. We have letter supplies, so you can write your legislators to tell them how important this issue is. We're gonna be here protesting on the green. If you want to protest, be loud, eat lunch. We kind of have like some time to kill. But we want to do it in a positive way. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you so much. It's really awesome to have this much support. Okay, so if you're not going to the UU Church, you are staying here, is the plan. Meet back here at 12:45. We'll get organized and then we'll head back to the school. Thank you so much, everyone.
Also, we have student artwork in the bottom of the UU Church if community members or other students are interested in viewing that. So definitely check it out and write to our legislators. Thank you.